Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm doing well.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. Happy to do this. Excited to do this. So.
It's terrific.
Yeah.
So this is Alicia Brocker.
Hello.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a hairdresser. I've been a hair designer for, gosh, almost 25 years now. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you start?
So I was 16 when I started hair school. And I remember, well, to back up a little bit, I've always been a planner. And I remember at around, I guess about age 15, being very worried about what am I going to do? What am I, and that seems kind of young to have that thought, right? I think most people are like, I don't know what I'll do. I'll just get it. But it really bothered me. And I had 3 different things that were of interest to me at the time. And hair design was one of them. Fashion design was another one. And interior design was the third. And so I remember going to my mom at the time and saying, Mom, I don't know what I want to do, but here are some things that interest me. And I'm so blessed. I have a mother that worked in vocational education for years and years and years before that, and was still in working with vocational education. And she said, well, honey, if you're interested in hair, why don't you try it out and in high school? And if you don't like it, you can, pursue interior design or fashion design or something like that. And then if you do, great, you get a head start in your career.
Which is awesome.
And I thought, yeah, it was awesome advice. And as a 15-year-old who didn't really care for traditional school anyhow, I was like, I like this idea. So sophomore year, I made that decision to enroll for the next year, my junior year, starting at, it was D. Russell Lee Career Center at the time. It's now Butler Tech. But Lakota was my home school, so that was my district. And so, yeah, I started junior year and fell in love with it in hair school. And so I graduated in 1999, and that's when I started doing hair. So May of this year will be my 25th anniversary as a licensed working stylist.
That is really neat. How incredible to have a mom and parental support towards
it's a part of my decision.
School.
Yes.
Right.
And so I'm a huge advocate for that. And I've actually, throughout my career, I've gone into the vocational schools and done some hair there and taught the girls and tried to be an encouragement for them that they were making the right decision. And because you feel insecure, you don't know.
Right.
And at the time, vocational education kind of had this stigma, right? That, oh, you were smart enough for college or something was wrong with you. I actually had a friend at the time that it was really disheartening because she's like, why would you want to go there? You're not pregnant. You're not on drugs. And it just really broke my heart. I said, well, no, I know what I want to do.
Right.
Why wouldn't I get a head start and save tens of thousands of dollars in the process? And so, no regrets. That person's not a friend anymore. I made other ones.
People will always say things.
People will always say things, but, if you know at a young age, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
Right.
So, I was very fortunate to have a mom who supported my decision to do that. And then, of course, once I went through school, I got into the workforce at 18, so I started young. And yeah, best decision I ever made.
That's great.
For sure.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Do you still love what you do?
I do. Now, that's not to say I didn't go through seasons of burnout, right? Which I think happens to everyone. And, we're changing creatures as human beings with changing interests. Thank goodness I picked a career that's constantly changing, right?
Right.
So as an artist, you're never bored because there's something else to learn. And then with the fashion design and the interior design, they all kind of interweave, right? All in design.
Right.
So I picked those up as hobbies and, obviously do hair as my career. So yeah.
Where did you first start working at? Right out of school?
well, right out of school, I worked for Bowerix Hair Design, which is just kind of a walk-in studio. I'm not even sure if there's too many of them around these days. Similar to like a Great Clips or Sports Clips, I guess, was what Bowerix was at the time. And I just needed to get on the floor and mess up, basically. We all need to do that, right? So, of course I had my license, but there's so much to learn once you get on the floor. So I went in and they just kind of throw you to the wolves, right? There's no assisting there or anything like that. There's minimal training required, no training other than obviously a license. I was really grateful for that time there, but I knew it was temporary. So I started there end of May or early June, right after graduation. By August or September, I was a manager. Wow. So I worked my way up pretty quickly. Right. So I was, 18 years old managing a store, working 12-hour days, 13 with opening and closing. And I thought, well, this is about as high as I can go here. What's next? So I knew that, again, that was a temporary decision. And then applied for a position at Identity Salon and Spa, which at the time was the hoity-toity, bougie salon in Cincinnati, nationally recognized, 50-plus station salon, 14,000 square feet. Wow. Any service you could think of at the time, spa-related or hair-related, we offered. Wow. We were on the cutting edge. Incredible. We were the first spa to incorporate Medi-Spa treatments too, such as Botox and fillers. So it was exciting to be a part of that. So I went from this manager to the assistant, right? So it was a humbling role, but it was a role that I was willing to accept because I knew I needed to go to the next level in this. So I accepted that position in December of '99. So about 6 months after I was licensed. And I went on the floor a little bit earlier than most. I think the assisting program was 6 months, but the owner said, since you do have some prior experience, just get through our training, and then we'll ease you into going on the floor. And I think I started on the floor in April, maybe even, no, February. I started on the floor in February just on Sundays. And I remember my first color client and being so nervous. But thank goodness I still remember, it was a blonde partial highlight bob. I was more nervous about the cut than the highlight, being a bob. Bobs, right. They sound easy, but they're not. They're one of the most difficult cuts to do. And thank goodness it all turned out fine, and she was happy and actually pre-booked her next appointment. So incredible. But there were times through color where, I had anticipated it to look in the early years, that I had anticipated it to look one way, and I'm like, that's a little different than I expected. But you make mental notes, and then the next time you do better, and so on and so forth. So I was very grateful for my time there. That was a commission salon. And I was there for 10 and a half years and learned a lot. I worked with some of the most amazing and talented stylists, hands down, for sure. So I'm very grateful that I got that training there.
Would you consider yourself a specialist in any area of hair?
Yeah, I would say I'm a coloring and cutting specialist. I don't do smoothing treatments or perms. I don't do extensions. I will do formal styles. So I kind of stay in my lane. Not that you should explore all of them, but that's where I find my niche. So yeah, I'd say coloring and cutting.
How did your first ever color go? Do you remember it?
It was that partial highlight, and so it went really well. She was happy with that. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So in any industry, everybody has their good days and their bad days. Let's go ahead and talk about what was your worst day in hair. If you can pin down one specific.
Yes, I can. It was early on in my career, and I had this client now, given that you will meet some clients, and of course at the time I was too insecure, too shy to speak up, and I should have. You learn that down the road. But this client sat in my chair, and she's like, "I want it short. I want it shade, like clipper cut on the sides and short on the top, but I don't want to look." And she's kind of a derogatory term,
right.
fill in the blanks. and I'm thinking in my head, this looks like a men's hair. She's describing to me a men's haircut.
Right.
How do I make it more feminine? Because clearly she doesn't want to look like a man. So I'm, kind of going over. I said, "So would you like it softer over your ears, on your neck?" "No, I want it clipper cut and short on the top." Okay. So I did what she had asked me to do, and then she, when I was done, cussed me out, told me I made her look like the derogatory term, and I remember at the time just like wanting to cry in that moment. It was I had never been cussed out like that. I had never, looking back, it was not me. It was the client.
Right.
And probably looking for a free service, which she got,
Interesting.
But if somebody was that way in my chair, I would refuse the service.
Right.
I just would. So that's definitely something I encourage young stylists to do, is stand up for yourself. If something doesn't feel right, you have the authority to say at that time, "I'm not the stylist for you," or "I'm not hearing, I feel like it's contradicting what," you talk through that and you say, "Let me get you with a different stylist. I want to keep your business here, but let me put you with if she does that with another stylist, they're going to say the same thing, right? And she's going to get pissed and go somewhere else. But at least nobody gets taken advantage of.
Right.
There's no tears.
Right.
So yeah, that was by far the hardest day in my career.
How did you move forward from the resilience mentally to continue forward in hair? Because I'm sure when clients just blow their tops on you, it feels very like, "Is this the right thing for me?"
Sure. And that happens a lot. Where you have I was pretty shaken for the rest of the day after that. So having to pull myself together and continue my day, I'm sure my nerves were shot, and, I was probably very quiet and thinking about it, but I did move on,
Of course.
But I remember, early on in your career, you're going to make mistakes, and that side of you that feels insecure is going to be like, I remember thinking, I shouldn't even be doing hair, but I think knowing that everyone starts somewhere, and that it's an art, so it is a learning process through trial and error, and it's okay to make mistakes. You have to give yourself grace, you have to give others grace, and that is the biggest lesson learned, I think, is to just give yourself grace, give yourself time. So something didn't turn out the way you thought, learn about it, think about it. Well, what did I do this time that I could do better next time, and just kind of go from there. But yeah, I think just and getting encouragement from others. I remember other stylists saying, "Alicia, what are you talking about? You're a great stylist."
Aww.
So I think surrounding yourself with positive people during those moments of, uncertainty is very important, very validating, affirming to, what you're doing in the journey that you're on, for sure.
Right. What advice would you have given to your younger self, and if it applies also to this new generation of stylists coming into the workforce?
To my younger self, give yourself grace. It's okay not to be perfect, and be patient with yourself. And I would say the same to younger stylists starting out. If things take you a little longer, that's okay. Allow yourself the time that you need to create the look. Don't put pressure on yourself to be the fastest, or master the art first, and then you'll naturally get faster at it, right? It's like a toddler learning to tie their shoes, right?
Right.
It is. You're learning that dexterity. You're learning, and then now you tie your shoe and it's nothing, right?
Right.
So over time will pick up. Your pace will pick up. But give yourself grace, give yourself patience, and don't feed into comparing yourself to others, competing with others.
Right.
You know, I think those are the two biggest things that a lot of times we as humans do, right? Is we compare and we compete, and then our self-doubt just plummets.
Right.
So don't do that. Look, you know, learn from others, but don't compare or compete. You're competing with yourself from, you know, the day before. You're comparing yourself to the day before. So that's your growth. And yeah, I think just being patient, giving yourself grace, two biggest things.
You've always known that you wanted to go into design.
Yes.
Were you like naturally artsy growing up? Would you describe yourself as that? How did you know that like you felt this like yearning to come into the industry?
Yeah, so I always loved color and shapes. I can remember being very little and waking up in the morning. My mom would tell me I'd say, I want to be a grape today and want to wear purple or something, you know, 2-3 years old, and wanting to pick out my clothes from a very young age. And then, you know, if I was playing with Barbies, it wasn't like I was playing with the dolls. I was building their homes. I was, you know, cutting up my mom's old towels and putting doing carpet and making bedspreads. And so I've always had a fascination with color and shapes. Actual art, drawing, horrible. Although my husband says, he's like, you'd be a good children's illustrator. I don't know. You know, very kind of animated and simple as far as actually drawing or painting. But yeah, I feel like ever since I was young, I had that natural ability to see color and shape. Now that definitely, as far as hair, even with that natural talent or interest, it had to grow over time. So still learned so much through it. I don't think you have to have a natural interest, but I think anything can be taught, you know. So, but
Interesting. Okay. This one's kind of a loaded question.
Okay.
Are you living your dream? Do you still dream? Is there something next? Where are you at now?
Is a loaded question. I am living my dream. Yeah, I am living my dream. But I still dream, of course. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like I am so blessed to have found a career that I love for so many reasons. I think the biggest is just the impact that stylists can have on people. I don't think they fully realize it. When you have the power to make someone look and feel good, it's just the best feeling ever, right? Like, hair days are always a good day for people, right? When you go to see the stylist, they're happy. You know, you go to see the dentist, you're not so happy. When you go to see a hairstylist, you know, you're excited. So it's like I get to hang out with my friends all day long, make them look and feel great. And, you know, I'm self-employed, I'm an independent hairdresser, so I make my own schedule. I have the freedom to take off when I need to without going to any authority and saying, you know, can I have this day? I mean, to be able to create your own schedule, make people look and feel good all day long, and have fun while doing it, and make a decent living doing it, I think is the American dream, right? So I am living my dream for sure. I still have visions. I wouldn't call them dreams yet of what the future will hold. So we'll see if those come to fruition or not.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as career-wise.
Have you had to take any risks in your career?
Yes. I'd say the biggest risk I took was leaving commission salon and going independently. that was a scary transition. I was under a contract, I was under a non-compete, but I knew that the recession had hit, I knew the salon was struggling, and I knew I had to jump ship, right? So, but I had been there 10 years. I mean, that's where I was a kid when I started, so that was a scary leap, risk to take for sure. But I am so glad I did it. Going off on my own was a learning experience for sure. I had to learn how to manage inventory and sell retail and purchase retail, and but the freedom that I had financially, independently, was so worth it. So yeah, so I'm a huge advocate for booth rental.
Of course.
As well.
Yeah. What would you say to other stylists who are maybe worried about an upcoming jump or leap to them that seems risky, but is it worth it? Is it worth taking those risks?
Yeah. So weigh out your pros and cons. I think that's always wise to do, is to empty. I always say I have to empty my brain. Whenever I have a decision to make, I have to empty my brain. So whether it's on a sheet of paper, traditionally old school, or I get out my notes on my phone, I need to empty my brain before making a big decision. And that way you're seeing it all in front of you and you can make a logical decision. But don't let fear refrain you from moving on. You definitely, it's okay to be a little nervous, but anytime you feel this tightness, this tension, it's time to move on.
Right.
It's like the hermit crab analogy. Have you heard the story of the hermit crab?
Tell me about it.
Okay. So anytime you're ready to make a change, it feels uncomfortable. Hermits have to move shells from time to time, right? So they grow and their shell becomes too tight and they're uncomfortable and they know they need to move to a bigger shell, but they're exposed while they move, and that seems very scary.
Right.
And but they take that leap, they're scared, and then they get in their shell and it's massive and they're like, whoa, what am I doing in this big shell? But then they grow into it and then that shell becomes too tight and then they have to go to the next. So it always seems scary to be vulnerable and exposed and to not know what's ahead of you. But once you get there, you will grow into that place and then on to the next. So that's my hermit crab analogy.
That is awesome.
So we're hermit crabs through life, basically. But don't be afraid to move on to that next shell. You can't stay in that tight shell forever. You have to move on.
You're so right. I'm going to hit pause one more time, and then I have my last question. Okay. Since this is January of 2024, do you have any trend predictions in the industry?
I do. So hair-wise, I'd say, we always move with fashion, right? So we're seeing these trends coined mob wife and old money aesthetic. And so we're going to see hair trends veer towards these different designs, right? So I think with the mob wife, we're going to see a lot more higher contrast, kind of going back to those early 2000s of, panel color, chunky highlights. I think it'll be with a twist. It'll be a little bit more blended.
Right.
And not so stark from the root. But I definitely think we are going to start seeing more ribbon-like color in hair, high contrast, playing with different color families, right? We might have red, blonde, and brown together again. So going back to those early 2000 trends, we're seeing the fur and the animal prints and all of that. So people are going to be, I think, a little bit more eccentric with their color in that trend. And then I think with that whole old money aesthetic, we're going to still see a very timeless look of dimensional monochromatic colors. So blondes with subtle dimensions in it. I think gone are the days of super ash, super gray, super white.
Right.
We're starting to see warmth come into blondes. again.
Thank goodness.
Yes, I agree. I personally just did not like the gray trend.
I feel like
So
everything was gray for a long time. I mean,
all the
interior
blondes,
design, the
yes,
blondes.
gone is gray. So we're seeing warmth come, and yeah, interior design too. So like, you know, we're seeing a turn back to traditional design in homes, and back to
So
traditional
excited
timeless
about
design
that.
and fashion as well. So we're going to see that with hair. So again, whether you're a blonde and you have softer, warmer tones, but still in that monochromatic, you're still blonde. Brunette, same thing. Redhead, same thing. So I think very different looks, right? But I think those are going to be the trends that we're going to see. And then as far as the cuts, I think continued. We're seeing these more rounded, softer shapes, right? So whether your hair is long or a bob, we're seeing some bend back in it. I don't think we're going to see as much beach waves. I think we're going to see that 90s blowout is going to return, and just softer, bouncier hair, more voluminous hair. And yeah, I think still seeing a lot of shaggy layers as well. So those are my hair trend predictions. I think as far as the business side of hair, we are seeing a lot more stylists go out independently. I think with the social media movement the past 10, 15 years, we're seeing a lot of people really capitalize on that, marketing themselves independently, and they're able to build so much faster. So I think that definitely booth rental way is going to really take off.
Do you feel like that's something regionally? Like we're in the Midwest,
Oh, yeah,
because
that's a
like
good question.
California
Sure.
or like, all right, if you look at like Nebraska and Kansas, is that going to be the same trends this year as the bigger cities like LA, New York?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, you know, obviously the trends start on the coast and they move their way inland, right? So I think it takes a little longer to get to those more remote regions of the country, our backbone areas. But I think eventually they get there. It's 5-10 years down the road, but eventually they get there. And of course, regionally, you know, as far as the business side of things, it looks different. In the bigger cities, I mentioned Identity being one of the first salons. We did that big city trend where we had people who just did color, and then you went to another stylist for cutting.
Okay.
And so that was a thing, you know, that we had picked up from the big cities that's still going on in the big cities.
Right.
And might still be going on at some salons Midwest as well. But I think you see more diverse stylists that will do everything or more services than just one.
Right.
So while I say, I'm a cutting specialist, I don't just do color, I don't just do cuts.
Right.
Whereas in the big cities, that is very normal to go to someone for your color and then go to someone specifically for the cutting and shaping. So, yeah. And of course, they'll work hand in hand with each other. If somebody's getting a major cut, their color application is going to look different.
Right.
So,
right.
But I think that's something regionally that I don't think will ever make its way inland. I think that that's more of a big city thing. I don't know. See.
So we've talked about a little bit of burnout.
Yeah.
Who inspires you, or what inspires you through those times where you're feeling a little bit less into everything?
Sure. Usually during those times, it was also a time that I needed to make a change. So where I was feeling a season of burnout, I was in that tight shell. And I knew I needed to move out of it. So I think sometimes you need to be around other talent or, to feel inspired. I'm very fortunate that, and this is just me personally, I know that the lofts, people like a salon loft where they're kind of isolated by themselves, and to each his own. Every stylist is different. For me, I need to be around other stylists because that's how I get inspired and that's how I stay on trends. Again, not that I'm comparing or competing, but I'm learning and we're sharing. So for me, it was time, anytime I was experiencing burnout, it was because I needed to get out of a situation to be inspired. So, so I think, and I'll go to the internet too and look online, and anytime something feels a little new or I'm unsure of, I'll get inspired online as well. But yeah, I think that's just a time when you need to question, okay, am I happy where I'm at? Am I, is it time for me to make a change and be a new change of scenery, new change of talent to be around? So, yeah.
Do you have any YouTubers or podcasters that you enjoy watching their content? Anyone who inspires you, just day to day?
So day to day, yeah. As far as hair, I watch certain people for entertainment, but not really to learn. So I love that Brad Mondo guy. He's very entertaining. I can't think of his name right now. It's gonna come to me. Guy Tang. He's very fun to watch. But I think personally, I love more inspiring podcasts just on a personal level, mental and spiritual health. So I love The Next Right Thing by Emily P. Freeman. I love the Lazy Genius podcast. Her name is escaping me right now. And Rachel Hollis, the Rachel Hollis Show. I love her too.
I love her too.
Yeah.
I'm reading her book, Girl Wash Your Face.
Oh, Girl Wash Your Face. Okay. I love, I think it's called Girls Stop Apologizing or something like that too.
Right.
She's
great.
Yeah, it's something like Girls Stop Apologizing. But yeah, she is great. I just listened to a podcast the other day from her. So, driving or walking or in the sauna or something like that, when I have some time to, feel refreshed and inspired, I'll put on a podcast. Yeah.
What are other ways that you fill yourself up so that way you are setting yourself up for success, just on a daily level?
I think routines are vital, and I have a morning and a nightly routine that I think everyone could benefit from some kind of routine, right? So in the morning, for me personally, as a Christian, I'll read my Bible daily, I'll do my devotionals daily, and so starting my day with my spiritual and mental health, I think really helps me stay in a place of gratitude. So whether it's, maybe you meditate or, whatever it is that makes you kind of feel centered and connected, I think that's important. And then I end my day the same way, reading something that's peaceful and inspiring. Or at least I try to, not all days, but I try to. And I think that, starting from a place of just gratitude each morning helps you go into the day a lot with just a clearer perception of the day ahead.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Of
Again,
course.
this is Alicia Brocker.
Of course, yeah.
And thank you for being a part of my
My
YouTube
pleasure.
channel.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.